Hello again. It is heartening to see that others are now speaking out against the BBC bias, which is strongly against white culture and history, and in favour of black people of African origin. I have remarked on this obvious trend a number of times and been roundly condemned as a white supremacist as a consequence. Two groups, though, have released reports this week which say exactly the same thing that I've been pointing out, which is that the BBC distorts both Britain's past and also how the country actually is today. This is done by making programmes about history which leave out anything which might show Britain and its empire in a good light, and focusing only on any bad things which might have taken place in the past. So it was that the BBC managed to produce a documentary about Freetown in Sierra Leone without once mentioning that it was a safe haven set up by Britain for slaves whom the Royal Navy had rescued when it was fighting to suppress the slave trade in the 19th century. This fake history has been so common over the years that most of us don't even bother to watch the programmes because we know that they're likely to be full of lies, half-truths, and to leave out anything which might show our country in a favourable light. The two groups which have produced reports about the BBC's bias are called History Reclaimed and the Campaign for Common Sense, and I give links to information about them in the description to this video. The Campaign for Common Sense in particular deserves a commendation for talking about the misrepresentation of ethnicity in BBC dramas set in the present day. This is something which all ordinary people know about, but which is very seldom mentioned in print. Indeed, it is as a rule only YouTube channels like this one which speak openly about it, and it's encouraging to see that newspapers are now reporting what has been found after the BBC's output for the last year has been examined and sifted through. Just to remind viewers what I'm talking about here, black people and Asians are always shown in disproportionate numbers in modern dramas on BBC, and almost invariably given important positions as surgeons, judges, senior police officers, commanders of nuclear submarines, and so on. One drama which was singled out for mention in one of the reports is a police thriller series called The Responder. This was set in Liverpool, and roughly half the police officers shown in the programme were black or Asian. In reality, 0.5% of police officers in Liverpool are black and 0.4% are of South Asian origin. In other words, the BBC deliberately inflated the proportion of ethnic minority of police officers. In the real world, they make up less than 1% of the Liverpool police, so the police showed them as 50%, that is to say 50 times as many ethnic minorities as one would see there in real life. The thriller series Vigil about a nuclear submarine was also mentioned. In this, a black man is commander of the nuclear submarine, his second in command is an Asian woman, and the rest of the crew are a mixed bag of various ethnicities. The BBC presents Britain in its modern dramas not as the nation it actually is, but rather as liberals feel it should be. Perhaps it's felt that this constant diet will accustom people to the day when black and Asian people really are the majority in our society and hold the positions of power. By showing an alternative universe where this has already happened, we will not be surprised or alarmed when the situation in the real world gradually aligns with what we've been seeing on our television screens for years. I have an idea that the two reports which came out recently might be the beginning of a trend in which people are no longer afraid to ask questions about our national broadcaster. It cannot be right that we are subjected to a barrage of propaganda of this kind and that our children are being indoctrinated with some very dubious ideology. Perhaps with a little more effort we might be able to damage the BBC's reputation and cause them to start serving us again instead of trying to control us. Perhaps they might even end up remembering their actual mission, which has been since the 1920s to educate, entertain and inform.